And that's where you need to understand your metric. Deployment is not release. So you can have your production that get very frequent updates, where some people might get access to it, where your tests are there, where when you talk about your product, that's your product, but then not necessarily all your customer get that released at the same time, at the same piece. Notably, there are no metrics on release. It makes no sense because, it depends on the customer need. Deployment, on the other hand, is when you say this is done. And of course, if I plan to release to a customer next year, I'm not gonna have everything done the day before. Well, potentially.
Maybe next sprint we'll meet the need, but for now it's just another feed.
Hello, welcome to Maybe Next Sprint 4. Today we are recording on Friday, so a lot of fun and happiness, right?
On a short week, actually.
On a short week for you.
Monday was holiday for me, yes.
Yeah, not me. But yeah, Easter for you, right?
Yes, and it's gonna be a short week next week also.
That's true also for me.
And the week after.
Oh, no, not for me.
Yeah, like
So,
I started
yeah.
the season, I work 4 days a week max now. It's good for me. And then it's like, oh, quarter is finished. Where the f were you been?
Just in case Enrico is in the cloud. I'm on the earth. He's a cloud something, SRE, whatever the name you want to put it. But also he lives in France, although he's Italian, and you can notice. But
And we have a lot of holidays here.
yeah, but I'm in Spain. I'm Argentinian. I'm on Earth, and I do delivery, product, and tech, a little bit of everything, or a lot of nothing. But so let's get into Sprint 4. So today we're gonna talk about let's say metrics in general. But to give you a little bit of context, it's like we're going to figure out which are metrics that can be useful. Again, it depends on the scope of it in terms of, I don't know, I'm a manager, right? So how do I use metrics? Is it to promote people, to understand progress, to fire people, to say we are going AI, full AI because we produce more?
And we fire everybody.
Of course. So, but it's a completely different context as in Enrico's point of view. So, let's start from there and let's discuss a little bit of what we want to be the takeaways on this sprint.
Yeah, I guess that the main takeaway that we can already say is that metrics are evil. And so we just need to... this is about how you can dance around evil metrics and survive. And I think we will try to discuss maybe how you can pick them, because for sure people will make their best to optimize for the metric and not caring about anything else. And then generally metrics are not a substitute for trust. So you need to trust the people that are impacted by the metrics more than the metrics themselves. And yeah.
Yeah, that's I think you say some 2 or 3 interesting things in there. I'll leave the trust topic for the very end because that's the
For
most.
the next sprint, yes.
Maybe that's the easiest one and the most complicated at the same time. But yeah, I guess that there is some pattern, at least from my experience, that I've seen every single time, is that every time you put any kind of metric, the metric is there to be cheated.
Oh, yes. Yes, you optimize for the metric. I mean, putting a metric means that you measure me or
Yes.
my work. If you measure my work, you're measuring me. So I'll do everything I can to make it as
But
good as
that's-
high
yeah.
as possible, low as
But
possible,
that's
whatever it is.
if you're strategic enough. That's not a bad thing. because it's
If
like
the metric is good,
pulling the
yes.
right triggers, you know? Like,
Yes.
yeah, I know people will try to go harder on that because they want to achieve that metric. If I pick the right metric, then I will get a nice combo of actions, right?
Yes. And that's where trust came in. I can give you a very real life example. If
Go.
you go cost reduction, okay? That's the best thing you can do for cloud. If you are a cloud engineer, you write YAML and you reduce cost. And potentially you cannot fire people. So that's how you reduce cost. You have to cut down stuff. If your only metric is total spending, then you literally shut down things. That up to a certain degree is what you want to do, because for sure you have a lot of stuff that you're not using it, you're not using it well, not elastic, blah, blah, blah. But then at some point you will start saying things like, oh, do we really need this testing environment? Do we really need pre-production? Do we really need that many server in production? And if you push too hard on that metric, at some point you will start hitting reliability. So you need to have cometrics, for example, or even if you leave it broad, like I used to have open benchmark on reduce total spending. So you say you start January and then we want to see going down. You need to have trust in we cannot go low. Like at some point you have to make the call, that's it. We will not go lower than that. That means you need to be trusted that you cannot optimize for the metric anymore. A cometric on cost reduction can be saving by effort. You just make benchmarks on what was the savings for each effort that you did, and you benchmark that against like how much time did it take and how that impacted generally your other production metrics. And yeah, that's where you want to optimize. If you don't put safeguards, you will have a problem.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing to go through, because cost reduction topic is so broad. I mean, if you step back and you say, okay, I have an organization, right? And my organization has people, tools, cloud, whatever, and then cost reduction always go like, okay, from the general to the particular, right? Now, I can focus on, I don't know, infrastructure as a service, and then I can put some metrics in there to understand where I can improve some and reduce some costs. But that's in the whole math, that is, I don't know, 20%, 30% of my costs. Then I have to understand a broader picture. Is like, what is the value I'm putting in there, so I can work out costs? How can I understand that in terms of, if I don't have any kind of metric, or I have the wrong metrics, then I will be making the wrong decisions on how to cut costs to improve efficiency in terms of outcomes, right?
Yes, a typical example is, you bring it to let's bring it to the extreme so it's easier to talk about it. You cut your developer environments. Okay, so you will say, I have no money for the VMs. I go production only. Everybody should agree that that's insane. So let's say that, making 10 your cost for developer environments, like I cut the cost in half, whatever number you pick doesn't make sense as a target, because you need to have a cometric on your developer efficiency, meaning, and that's now we go into the territory where what does it mean? So whatever it means for your organization, what's efficiency for your engineering team, you need to make cost reduction efforts that are meaningful on the cost and that do not impact that other metric. You can make the same same line of thinking on, I'm cutting costs in production and I'm not actually impacting the reliability of my production. That might be easier to count. I would say that it is easier to count. if you don't work with those two metrics together, then of course it means, oh, I can just shut down all the developer environment. I've saved cost.
Yeah.
I'm good. No, who knows who? And then people will continue to work. They will just deploy to production. Whatever happens. And if you go on that insane lane of thinking, like, well, you deploy to prod, and if I don't have any metric on the impact on customer, potentially nothing happens. And that's why metrics, are evil, but you need to dance around them. And because, you can start ship horrible stuff to prod without any metric. And how do you know that's going to be bad? Well, at some point your customer will call you, drop you, or whatever. But
there is one
that's
thing
late.
there. I've seen this happening. It's like it goes so low. It goes in terms of noticeability. I don't know. It's the right term, but here. But you start doing those changes, and the impact will be like extended in time that you won't notice until it's too late.
Yes.
Until it's passed a long time, like a big long time, and then you say, "Oh, we are doing it wrong. Everything is wrong here." But you don't remember that it started
Yeah,
on
and
the
then you can
wrong...
also say, but it was working for the last 6 months or whatever.
Correct.
Of course.
Let me.
I would say that's because in the example of your cutting developer environments that, it's very close to me because I've been asked to do that. Sometimes rightfully, sometimes you had things that you have to cut, but maybe your developers are not that, basket of monkeys. They are able to do their job, so you can survive with them not being able to test everything correctly for some time because, potentially they're not that bad. You hire them, you're working with them, and so like your entire product degrades, but don't die, and so you don't see it. Why you don't see it? Because you don't have metrics.
Let me improvise a little bit on our script and ask you.
No.
Yeah, come on, it's Friday.
I wrote it actually, so
Hi. So yeah, that's why I don't care. But let me ask you if you remember some really bad metrics that you had to use on your past experience, or someone called a friend of my friend or something like that.
Friends of friends. There are a lot of book example of bad metrics. I definitely want to mention that my microphone was clipping, so let me do this. Okay. The book example of bad metrics is commits. Measuring commits or measuring amount of code, unless you are measuring code being deleted, that it's a good thing to measure.
Hold on, because I have a good one on that. It's like, I used to play on a place where... This is a long time ago, so sorry if anyone gets hurt. But we publish in the promo website that the amount of lines of code we wrote. It's like, oh, we wrote more than 2 million lines of code. Like, okay, but that could be really bad,
Yes, or really stupid. Like, I can tell you that in the last week I wrote thousands of lines. But in fact, I was just writing one line and then run a command that was generating code for me because that's what I needed to do. So yeah, it can be like, it's a metric that makes no sense. And it's the metric that the line of code that actually drives. That's the best example of if you measure your developers on line of codes, it means that they will write a lot of lines so that their code will be harder to read, for sure.
That's for
potentially bad, in performances, and for sure harder to maintain. So like today, I'm writing so many lines and okay, everything is good. In 6, 8, 12, whatever amount of months, when a bug appears, you have a bug in tens of thousands of code of lines to read instead of hundreds. When you have to onboard the new people, they have to learn tens of thousands of code lines instead of hundreds. So it's maybe the most stupid thing you can do.
Yeah.
And
I
why
have
I
another
like
one.
code lines being deleted, because there is no benefit in keeping code that you don't need. And so if you optimize for people being able to delete lines, and your cometric, or I mean your boundary should be, you need to have a review process, because at some point you will have people that will remove lines, and then you will start having, like, instead of writing 2 lines that are easy to read, you run a 1-liner that makes no sense. That's where you have your review saying you're a but that's a very great metric, because it keeps down the amount of you are dangling around.
I will have to add
Another
a lot of bit here for
yeah, that's your problem. You are the one that cuts.
it.
Another terrible metric is incidents, amount of incidents, because it means
good
that
one.
oh yes, if you so having incidents in tech is the reality. Things break, and especially in, I would say, common stuff in tech that at this point is web things, application, whatever we're doing. That software is brought in a way. It's not engineering. It's like we are throwing things together and nobody cares. You try and maybe. That's totally not how other engineering fields are working. And so incidents happen. Well, that's okay. Who cares? But if you measure amount of incidents, that means that you want that amount to be low. You are actually pushing people to not declare incidents, and just wait until something is so big it has to be an incident to actually do it. What does it mean? It means that then you're not using your incident as a tool, because the incidents are a very useful and powerful tool that can help you improve things, learn, share problems, etc. We might talk about incident at some point, because it's a fun thing to discuss.
Yeah, we should. Yeah, totally.
But if you push on the number needs to be as low as possible, then I have no incentive on declaring incidents. And maybe I just notice something as like I fix it, and oops,
Nobody ever knew.
nobody will know. And maybe you will have customer being impacted, and at some point after some time you was like, oh yeah, there is this thing that sometimes doesn't work. So maybe there is a bug, who knows. No, it was a incident and you just fixing it. So yeah, that's a terrible thing. What do you want to measure though? Because we
correct.
are a positive podcast. You want to measure impact on your customers, because that's unavoidable. And so if you measure for how long my customers were impacted, or meaning for how long my application was degraded, was not working, was whatever is going to be your threshold, then it's good, because you cannot cheat that, because it's a metric that does not depend on you, meaning if it's broken, it's broken. If you have your team trying to overachieve on that metric, means that your downtime or degraded time is as low as possible. And that's exactly what you want. Then again, you need to have trust, because sometimes you don't care on fixing some degraded situations too fast. That's the same as cost reduction. Sometimes you might reduce costs but the engineering of that reduction is costs more than your ROI in whatever time frame you're working with. That's the same on incidents. Sometimes you have random degradations that I don't know. It might be that your user need to retry something 2 times, and that happens to, I don't know, 10% of your user every day, and then you're like, fair, I don't care. To fix this, I need 2 weeks of engineering. I won't do that. That's okay.
Totally.
You can do that.
Now,
That's a good metric.
So, for the last part, I think you mentioned some, let's say, standard metrics or frameworks that are out there.
Yes,
as
the
in-
stuff you can Google, so you can do this tomorrow.
Yeah, let's define so people, if they want
But
to know
before
where to
that,
start.
Let me
Yeah.
ask you, what's the most useful metric that you can use to not fire somebody? Because that's the other very good usage of metrics. Like a manager at some point will need to bin count and decide how many heads to cut.
If you ask me, like 100% being Pablo, I would say this is a soft metric, not a hard metric. And it will be 80% coming from feedback from partners, people from
Okay.
lateral up,
Are you
down,
going to tell
and side.
HR then?
What?
What are you going to tell HR? I'm firing this guy because you
What?
can't.
Oh, you will be surprised. You will be surprised. That's reaction. Yeah, I don't know why I'm laughing, but it's sad as fuck. But, yeah.
Yes.
No, but yeah, honestly, here, and this is a good topic anyway, because so it's so easy to focus on output metrics
Mhm.
instead of outcome. So if you start, and this is my day to day, I'm part of it. If you start just focusing on output, as in, I don't know, amount of ticket close or amount of commits,
Yes.
I don't know, bugs,
Whatever countable thing you have on a
Right.
button somewhere.
Yeah.
Yes.
and you just leave out the whole outcome or the whole process of feedback and soft part also, then you most probably will be making a bad decision. And it happened. I mean, it happened from time to time that when you are working with a team of people and you have 5, 7, 10 people within a team, sometimes the glue of the team is the person that is not the most productive, or sometimes it's the less productive. But you take out that person out of the equation, out of the team, and the team falls apart and start doing like really bad performance. So it's not just about the number going through the Excel file or whatever tool you are using. You need to make decisions on firing people. I think that you need a lot more context than just a metric.
Okay. If we make this a softer conversation, like, you have a team and every year, you want to know, you want to have something potentially countable on the performance of your team. Like, is it going well? Can it go better? And what would be, like, what can be a useful thing to count there that is not, besides the thing that I would have mentioned in my what's going on in the best practices around, besides feedback. Of course you can get feedback. There are 1,000 ways to get feedback, and that can be a countable thing. Like, you do 360s, you ask people, let's say, with some structure, you get feedback. Feedback can be countable because you can ask, to grade some stuff of people.
And let me say something here. I said that about the soft metric as in feedback. I don't quite believe in organized feedback in sense of formal feedback.
Okay,
form
like
to
the
feel.
stuff you get asked every year about your colleagues and whatever.
Yeah, I think that's a standard process that nobody gives a ton of whatever.
I mean,
Uh,
if you start saying bad things, it means that you really hate somebody. So
Yeah, but sometimes people just, they don't want to get involved in something and they just go through standard evaluations. I think you have to be in there. You have to know the people, talk with the people, and get your daily feedback, as in understanding human relations. And that's a huge part. I don't want to get into that because I think it's for 2 or 3 other sprints, but I think that's a big part. In terms of, let's say, formal metrics, I will go with the standards that are in the market in terms of, I don't know, if we go DORA metrics, you go deployment frequency. That's a big one. And then one thing that is for me, I usually find that in companies it's hard to define. It's value.
Yes. How much value did this person or this team brought on the table?
No, even bigger. Product value.
Okay.
Like what's the value that we are putting in production? So in the streamline, in the stream of work, you are adding value in production. What's that value? Because if you know that value, you can break it down to understand what is the collective or individual value you are adding, the pieces you are adding into that value. If you start with there is no value on what we are adding, you have a cascade of like, okay, so I don't care
You're
what we are
dividing by zero.
measuring,
Okay.
So, but that's a hard one. And sadly, I cannot give you like a formula on how to calculate it because it goes by product, by company, by context. So for one company, maybe adding more value on the product is just to keep it as stable or as responsive as possible. For others, keep adding small features every single time. For others, penetrating bigger markets or getting a bigger piece of the cake, whatever. So, but I'm certainly sure that at some point, people has to gather and define it. What is the value here for us? And then start from there.
And trickle it down on who contributed to that value.
Correct. And also this will clean a lot, like you go like, lean thing and start cleaning a lot of,
it's easier also to plan and
why we are doing this. It's no value. There is no value here. Let's just drop it. Let's just do meaningful things. So and getting back into metrics, I guess DORA metrics are like the golden metrics.
Yes. Let me get through then
Oh.
the best practices that you can find around.
If you have some additional skills, you can add it somewhere here or there, and then boom, DORA metrics.
Like this, making a
okay,
box
we add it in the
link.
YouTube comments down there. It's like a link to DORA.dev, whatever.
So DORA, the main ones are deployment frequency, meaning how many deployments are you doing in a time frame. And okay, let me enumerate, and then I would say a couple of words. Then you have lead time for change, meaning how long does it take for a change to go from I start working on this to the customer can use it. And that's not going to prod. Customer can use it. It's very different. Release is not deployment. Change failure rate. I make all these changes that will take whatever time they need to take. How many fail, And then mean time to recovery. After a failure, how long does it take for me to recover? And I like DORA because a lot of people like DORA metrics because they are easy to count. I had people that didn't like the idea of DORA metrics because they're like, oh, now we're getting monitored, now we're getting counted, etc. I would say that in the sea of whatever stupid metric you can pick, those 4 are very much detached from the people. Or let's say you can count them in a way that is maybe anonymous, but for sure like grouped in a way that you cannot really pinpoint people on those metrics, but they're really talking about your production. And
in the context of what I mentioned on terms of defining what value is, DORA metrics fits perfectly because you are describing the whole stream of work and putting some 3-4 metrics in the whole process, and then you can clearly evaluate the whole
and you can make
there.
other changes and use these 4 metrics as a benchmark of your change. There are some, and actually, DORA metrics, I would say it's important to mention that they come from there is at this point a lot of literature about them. If you search, there is a huge website with so many things around Dora, like a little too much.
Yes.
But depending on the size of your organization, it can be useful to just talking about capabilities and whatever. If you're small, deployment frequency and change failure rate, those are the two things you want to count.
Yeah,
You can
those-
count them monthly on an Excel file manually. Like, it's easy.
We do manually on an Excel file.
Yeah,
In the AI,
it's
we do
in
Excel
AI.
as
Yes, it works.
yes.
And it's good enough. And but there are some things that are interesting to check, and you just don't want to implement them blindly. Like deployment frequency, for example, you need to think how's your product, what your product needs, because maybe you don't want to have deployments every hour, every minute. Maybe you have a product that it's okay, that not only is okay, but needs to be deployed every day, every week, every month. I worked in places where customers were like, "Oh, we don't want monthly updates. We want like we can schedule a meeting every year when we do an upgrade. That's it." So there are other places where they're like, "We
Well,
want the bleeding
hello.
edge. We want
Yeah.
your changes every day." You know?
Careful. What we are what you're saying is quite interesting, because again, if you apply, this is a great metric, but if you apply it in the wrong way, let's
it can be
let's
terrible.
use your example. You have clients that they don't want to get any sort of update on a
Yes.
frequent basis. So
Like,
I want the
I-
whole
I
year to be
work with-
stable.
Yeah. I
And
worked
then-
with customers that were like, "Upgrades? You send us an email, we schedule a meeting, but we don't have bandwidth for more than one a year."
Yeah, correct.
You need to be
And then-
careful there.
And then you put that metric in place, and the concept of the metric you share is like, the more the better.
Yeah.
And then you have people like throwing things like never before and
Exactly.
having like an unhappy customer. So yeah, this is a good example.
And that's where you need to understand your metric. Deployment is not release. So you can have your production that get very frequent updates, where some people might get access to it, where your tests are there, where when you talk about your product, that's your product, but then not necessarily all your customer get that released at the same time, at the same piece. Notably, there are no metrics on release. It makes no sense because, it depends on the customer need. Deployment, on the other hand, is when you say this is done. And of course, if I plan to release to a customer next year, I'm not gonna have everything done the day before. Well, potentially. I want to, release, or sorry,
Happen
deploy,
like that. Never, ever.
every once in a while. And so if I can make stable, decent changes every day, week, or whatever, even if the customer would see that after a year, you're doing good on your metric anyway.
That's completely true. Yeah.
Another interesting set, that's a framework of metrics that's harder to count. So that's why I always suggest start with Dora, maybe 1 or 2 Dora metrics, and then you'll see it's the SPACE framework. And SPACE stands for satisfaction, performance, activity, communication, and efficiency. Now you're getting into the
blending area. Of,
yes,
yes.
that's where AI can help you. Maybe I don't know. We needed to throw it in. We said that we're gonna throw AI in the episode. I don't know how.
But I think the spirit, different than in the Dora, the spirit of SPACE is more focused also on individuals as human beings and
Yes.
and their well-being, let's say.
And I would, in my experience, the easiest way to measure most of the SPACE thing is surveys. Like
hate survey.
I know, like your NPC score can be there. That's like Net Promoter Score, whatever it's
Yeah.
called. Like you ask your customer in some situation as like, how you like it? 1 to 5, 1 to 10, whatever. Give me, you know, the 5-star thing. You can ask colleagues, you can ask whatever, and there's like, how you like it? That you get your satisfaction. Even on performance, even if you just ask around, do you think it's good, not good, how much? That's a
I mean,
start.
I think by themselves, Space won't give you all the information you need. But
Yeah.
if you combine it with Dora, boom, you have like a
Yes.
full spectrum of metrics that can give you. I usually call it soft and hard metrics. As in soft, not because they are soft by itself, but it's like
They're
how
not coming
people
from
feels.
a countable thing. Yeah.
Yeah, how people is feeling, how people is producing because how they are feeling, how they are connecting each other, how they are communicating. At the end of the day, the building a software is just throwing line of code, but connecting
Think about
people,
them, maybe.
connecting people on the back, right? It's all about
Yes.
people. At the end, it's like that.
It's a nice
so-
view. I normally
it's-
connect YAML files, not people, but
Wow. Now you can connect AI agent. I love
and
We'll have a conversation on how we're gonna measure performance on AI productivity.
no,
No.
no, we're gonna
not
skip
doing
that. No.
Okay.
And a good reference on metrics is the Accelerate book that I haven't read. It's too big. Like I'm too stupid to read a book that's this big, where like 3 out of 5 authors have PhDs or stuff. Like no,
Yeah.
guys,
It's
I'm
complex.
too dumb. But it's a good book apparently. And the Dora website has so much stuff. Actually, the author of the Accelerate book then went to build the Dora
Yeah.
thing. And
There is one book now. I'm coming from anywhere, but there is a nice book that speak about streamlines of work and all that. It's called From Project to Product.
Okay.
I won't remember the author, Dom something.
You can
or
put it
Dan
here.
something. Yeah. Here down below, you will find a link to the book. No, we are not promoting anything.
No, we
but
don't care. We are
but-
too stupid also to do the Amazon affiliate thing, so we're
Yeah.
not gonna do that.
No. Well, who knows in the future? But
Maybe we get smarter,
Yeah.
but
you can write a book and I can promote your book. I don't know how to write anyway.
with
But-
AI.
Yeah, of course. And a lot of bullet points, in the book. Anyway, yeah.
In summary,
So yeah, I think that book brings some sight of how you measure value, and that would be good stuff to include in here.
perfect. I think it's important to mention that metrics should be anonymous, so you need to anonymize and go like at team level, or and like you don't want to being able to pick a single person from a metric, and that's usually easy with Dora. Of course, if you have like a single person project, it's
Well,
a single person.
Don't use
Then you have,
metrics.
I would say, at that point you have problems that are bigger and beyond your metrics thing.
Yes.
And a very useful thing are like what if you Google it, you get if you search for balanced scorecards, meaning like combine multiple type of indicators. So like you want to have qualitative and quantitative things together.
Oh.
So like hard metrics, numbers, graphs, nice things, but also written feedback can be a good metric. Like if you care and you should have teams that are in contact with your customers and you ask them written feedback of some kind, you collect that, and that's pretty good. That's a good metric, that's a good indicator generally for how things are doing.
What
You had a question.
What shall we do? What shall we do with people that used
We
to
fired them. No.
Yes. No. that that they are used to use, let's say, a story point as a metric.
Oh God, that's okay. So you're going beyond line of code. They're like story points.
No,
I would
trying
say
to make a point here, so that let me, yeah. So, but yeah, I'm asking honestly because I'm trying to make a point on contrast. We are talking here about general performance metric as in within an organization. And sometimes it gets a lot of confusion around, let's say, team metrics, internal, things that random pick. I think those kind of metrics could be good enough just for the people that are in there, like a small bunch of people that they want to understand how far they can go in terms of capacity kind of thing. But you cannot take that out of that system because otherwise you start confusing a lot of things.
yes. Yes, you actually, that's a good point. You picked something that's even worse than line of code.
Yes.
So I agree on I think it's a good point to make that you need to take account your metrics on their context.
Right.
So, and the context should matter. So DORA, the context is your customer using your product.
Right.
So whatever you count there, honestly, it's important, and you can action on that. If you change your context, and now your context is story points that, like we said in the previous sprint, it's an internal estimation tool, then it can be an important metric, but for what? For your internal estimation. So if you want to go, and honestly, I've done it. I was in teams where this was done to me. I would say that I'm kind of doing it. I'm using T-shirt.
It's same
It's not
thing.
T-shirt, but I'm using T-shirt and not
When
story
I
points.
your T-shirt is still a story point.
Yes, and I would say it's relevant to me to go back in time and say and being able to see how many T-shirts I wear. Okay, that's getting weird. In the month,
Try to
you
change
know?
it from time to time.
Yeah, I wear shirts, not T-shirts. So
Right.
I know it's just for work.
You see, it's
And,
Friday. Come on, just put a Friday something.
And that's an important metric if you keep it in the context. That's the team and the person using it. If you start taking that metric out of the team, because the metric itself lose value, like T-shirt sizing for my team
100%.
is not for your team, then of course you're like, it's like going to the website that's like correlation is not causation, and it's like saying, I don't know, amount of alligators bite and the economy, and you see that
Yes.
what was like amount of cheese eaten and then alligator, whatever, like
Yeah.
they just take random graphs and they find correlation, mathematical correlation of the graphs.
Yeah.
That's doing the same stuff. You're just then for that we use AI today, so you don't need to pick those information, this data.
It sounds funny and logical, but you will be
What do
surprised.
you do if you are into that?
Well, you will be surprised on how many organizations uses,
Oh yes,
like, again, story points in the very wrong way.
Yeah.
And
As like
and going
as
back to the
review
topic,
tool. Yeah.
people get fired because of that.
Yes. And then the advice is, that's your metric,
Did it?
go
I
for
know.
it. That means everything you work on has so many story points, you cannot fit the Jira field, and you can close them so fast, but not too fast, otherwise you're not that good at estimation. And you play the game. That means you are in a organization anyway, and at some point you have to decide, do I care of staying, of changing?
Yeah, don't take it wrong. I mean, there are good metrics in the right context.
In the right context.
Predictability, perfect. For the good,
Yes.
the team, perfect.
For
To
planning,
understand, planning,
necessary.
perfect. To measure performance of different teams within an organization, No,
do that.
wrong,
No, don't do that.
wrong. To punish people, wrong.
I mean,
Don't
yes,
be a bad
because
manager and just read a
Yes.
little bit and
as soon as you do that once, it means that okay, maybe you will. If you need an excuse to fire people, there are a lot of excuses.
Oh, yeah,
I
well.
mean, that use that. You want to use that, go for it.
why are you talking a lot of firing people? It's because it's trendy now,
It's
or
the
what?
news. Microsoft now has just.
Ah,
introduced-
yes, I
can I
saw.
mention? Beep that. Big company just introduced new on Matrix AI, whatever, to fire people. So I was like pumped.
Yeah,
I was reading that this morning. I was like,
Yeah, me
yes,
too. I
good,
read it this morning.
good. And
The scary part is there are so many companies copying whatever Microsoft or whatever other company do. That is,
yeah, they're
Scary.
like, oh, we return to the office. So yeah, you play the game, and if you're a manager and you think about doing that, A, stop. B, you're stupid. C, you will get some people, for sure. It's a stupid metric, so you don't know who you're going to fire. Maybe it's good, maybe it's bad. That's not your if your decision is based only on that, it's not gonna be the outcome you want. And the day after, everybody is going to close so many points. Like
yeah,
your
yeah.
point amount will go so high, you have no idea, and it will be completely meaningless. So don't do that.
That's a good advice. I think,
Don't do that.
yeah. I think let's recap a little bit on metrics in generally. Like, we need metrics. Metrics are good for the good sake of understanding value, ways of working, processes, company outcomes. They are good. Now, there's good by definition. There are good metrics, as in DORA metrics, as in space metrics, and many other frameworks that are out there. Just really be careful to pick the right ones in the right context.
Yes.
You don't need
Because-
to put all together. You just need to start with one or two. You just need to understand if they're good enough, if you need to change it, if you need to go with better numbers or worse numbers, or I don't know, whatever. But context is everything on metrics.
Yes.
That's my conclusion. I don't know
And
if
trust. You need
trust,
to trust
yeah.
the people
Oh,
that
shit.
give you the metrics and not the metric itself to some degree. Like you need to balance trusting the metric and trusting the people. Sometimes the metrics is not correct and you need to trust the people.
Let me give my thought on trust. If you are a manager, right, and you have an organization below you or on your side or whatever, call it, and you don't trust your organization,
Who cares about the metric? Use the sorry points.
you are a really bad manager.
yes.
You are a really bad manager, and you should really think about it. I mean,
Change job.
I've seen this so many times, like the manager rotating people for the sake of being, I fired this one and I hired another one, so everyone keeps scaring at me or whatever. Like, I've seen this.
That's
I've
a
seen this.
strategy.
That's really think about it. You're not good enough. Trust is about trusting your organization. It speaks about your job, basically. If you don't trust the people that is working with you, your job is useless, basically.
And to close, if you need to pick a metric and you want to start counting beans, do easy. Deployment frequency, change failure rate are easy to count. Most probably you are already counting them somehow. You can use tools that are already there, like Apache DevLake, that you just plug into your Git, Jira, whatever you're using, and they will give you most of this information. Or Excel. Count how many when you deploy, you note it down, you make some counts, easy peasy. Combine it. That's the important thing. Combine your deployment frequency and change failure rate with like some kind of anonymous, smooth polling of some kind, so that you get if your team is happy or not. And that's a great start. Like if you have these three things, is my team doing okay? And again, you do a poll on Slack every, I don't know, Wednesday, whatever you prefer. My deployment frequency, my change failure rate, if they're stable, you are in a great place. If they are improving, whoa, you're good at your job. If you're going down, maybe you can look into why. And that's a great start.
Let
Don't
me add
stress
one.
out.
That is whatever you want to put in there, but product value. Because
But
all
how
of
do you
this,
count that?
yeah, define it and measure. I mean, if you don't count on that, you can be great on those metrics, but for no reason.
Yes, you want to count your reasons, but that's harder.
I know, but you can start
You
with
can do
really
it
small.
next. Yeah, you can start really small also. Yes.
Yeah.
And remember, people will obsess on your metrics. And so you want to make them the best if you obsess those metrics. And that's it.
Yeah, I think we can wrap up this sprint. Again, if you like it, guys, just follow
Give us money.
whatever. I don't know. I'm
No.
not so.
Do we have a Bitcoin thing where you can
give
throw
us money.
No? Yeah.
It
Who
could be. No, but it would be nice if you guys can suggest some topics that you would like us to talk about. We have like a huge list. We are prioritizing things that we like to talk about. But yeah, let's see.
Not
let's get
necessarily that
something
we know, but
No,
mostly
we
that
should
like.
talk. We talk because we don't know. If we knew, we were doing other things.
We were working, right?
Correct. Yeah. But anyway, thanks everybody, and see you next sprint.
See you next sprint.
Bye bye.